Imagine standing at the foot of a tower so tall it pierces the clouds, a building that has been under construction longer than most countries have existed in their modern form, 144 years. That is not a typo. While empires rose and fell, while two world wars shook the earth, while humanity went from horse-drawn carriages to landing on the moon, one single building in the heart of Barcelona never stopped reaching skyward. And right now, after more than a century of hammers, stone, steel, and sacrifice, it is almost done. But how? Why did it take this long? And what secrets are buried inside its spiraling towers that most people have never heard about? Stay with me, because this story is unlike anything you have ever encountered. The Sagrada Familia, even the name sounds like a prayer. Antoni Gaudi's magnum opus, a Roman Catholic basilica in Barcelona, Spain, is widely regarded as the most ambitious architectural project in human history. When the first stone was laid on March 19th, 1882, Queen Victoria was still on the British throne. Thomas Edison had just patented the light bulb, and no one alive could have imagined what this building would one day become. The original architect, Francisco de Paula del Villar, resigned just 1 year into the project after a disagreement over the design. That is when a young, visionary, deeply eccentric architect named Antoni Gaudí stepped in and changed everything. He did not just take over the project, he consumed it. He devoted the last 43 years of his life to it, eventually moving into the construction site itself, surviving on bread, nuts, and water, and refusing to leave. Gaudí once said, my client is not in a hurry. He was talking about God, and as it turned out, he was absolutely right. But let's put the sheer scale of this challenge in perspective, because numbers alone will not do it justice. The Sagrada Familia, when fully completed, will stand at approximately 172.5 meters, making it the tallest church in the world, surpassing Ulminster in Germany by several meters. It will feature 18 towers in total, each representing a different apostle, evangelist, the Virgin Mary, or Jesus Christ himself. The central tower, the Tower of Jesus Christ, will be topped with a massive illuminated cross visible from nearly every corner of Barcelona. We are talking about a structure so enormous that the nearest skyscrapers in the city look like background props. And yet, unlike modern glass and steel towers thrown up in 18 months with cranes and prefabricated panels, this basilica was built with a philosophy that defied everything the construction industry stood for. Every column, every facade, every stone angel was conceived as part of a single unified vision. A vision so complex that even Gaudí himself knew he would not live to see it finished, where the story takes its first dramatic turn. In June 1926, Antoni Gaudí was struck by a tram while walking through Barcelona. He was 73 years old, poorly dressed, and carrying almost no identification. Passers-by assumed he was a beggar until he was taken to a charity hospital where he died 3 days later. The city of Barcelona, only then realizing who it had lost, gave him a funeral procession that stretched for miles. He was buried in the crypt beneath the very basilica he had spent his life building. But the real challenge was still ahead, because 3 years later, in 1936, during the Spanish Civil War, anarchists stormed the Sagrada Familia workshop and burned it to the ground. Gaudí's original plans, models, and blueprints, almost everything, turned to ash overnight. How could anyone possibly continue building without the architect's own instructions? How do you reconstruct the mind of a genius from fragments? The answer, as it turned out, would take decades of forensic architecture, digital reconstruction, and sheer human determination. Architects and historians spent years painstakingly reassembling Gaudí's vision from the charred remains of plaster models, from old photographs, from mathematical formulas buried in his writings. Gaudí had based much of his structural philosophy on what he called natural forms. He despised the straight line, calling it the line of man, and instead turned to the shapes found in nature, the parabola, the hyperboloid, the catenary arch. He built an upside-down model of chains and weights to calculate his load-bearing arches, then photographed it and flipped the image to see how the structure should stand. It was genius. It was also nearly impossible to decode from scratch, but piece by piece, generation by generation, the builders pressed on. By the late 20th century, something extraordinary happened. The rise of computer-aided design, CAD software, and eventually 3D modeling gave architects and engineers tools that Gaudí never had, but that were, almost eerily, perfectly suited to translating his mathematical vision into reality. Teams at the Sagrada Familia Foundation began using parametric modeling to recreate Gaudí's complex geometric surfaces with a precision that would have seemed miraculous to earlier generations of builders. Suddenly, the spiraling, branching, tree-like columns of the nave, columns that Gaudí had described as a stone forest, could be designed, tested, and manufactured with millimeter accuracy. Stone-cutting robots, guided by digital blueprints, began carving facade elements at speeds no human craftsman could match. Yet every single piece piece still had to pass through the hands of skilled artisans before it was approved for installation. This was always about more than just building a church. It was about honoring a promise to the dead. The construction itself reads like a catalog of engineering miracles. The nave, finally completed and consecrated in 2010 by Pope Benedict XVI, features columns that branch outward near the ceiling like the canopy of a forest, distributing weight so efficiently that the walls needed no flying buttresses, a radical departure from Gothic tradition. The stained glass windows, designed to bathe the interior in colored light at different times of day, were engineered so precisely that the morning light floods the nave in warm oranges and ambers, while the afternoon sun turns the opposite side into a cascade of blues and greens. Standing inside the Sagrada Familia is not like standing inside a building. It is like standing inside light itself. Visitors have been known to weep without knowing why. Outside, the three facades tell three chapters of the same story. The Nativity facade, the only one completed under Gaudi's personal supervision, is a riot of organic detail. Stone plants, animals, angels, and human figures crawling over every surface like a living tapestry. The Passion facade, by contrast, is stark, angular, almost brutal, deliberately designed to convey the suffering of Christ, its skeletal figures carved as if by grief itself, and the Glory facade, still under construction, will be the largest of the three, a monumental gateway representing the path from death to eternal life. When it is complete, it will be the main entrance to the basilica, and it will stop everyone who sees it dead in their tracks. But the towers, oh, the towers. Right now, as of the most recent construction updates, several of the major towers are nearing their final heights. The Tower of Jesus Christ, and the tallest, the central spire, is expected to reach its full height in the coming years, at which point the Sagrada Familia will officially surpass every other church on Earth. Workers are currently installing the illuminated lantern at its peak, a crystal structure designed to project light over the city like a beacon. At night, it will be visible from the sea. Think about that. A building begun with hand tools and horse carts will, within our lifetimes, carry light across the Mediterranean. The project, now funded almost entirely by entrance fees from the 4.5 million visitors who tour the basilica each year, has a projected completion date somewhere in the early 2000s and 30s. Though, given this building's history, most people have learned not to hold their breath. And yet, for the first time in 144 years, completion feels real. It feels close. The scaffolding is coming down, the towers are rising, the light is spreading. There is something almost unbearable about the beauty of this story. A man gave his life for a building he knew he would never see finished. He was hit by a tram, buried beneath the foundations, his life's work burned to the ground, and still the building rose. Still it rises. Still it will rise, one stone at a time, one generation passing the tools to the next, until one morning, probably sooner than any of us expect, a cross will be placed at the very top of the tallest tower, and the world's longest construction project will finally, quietly, be complete. 144 years, one vision, one man who looked at a plot of land in Barcelona and saw something that would outlast everything.